The pill was the wrong shade of blue. I noticed it as casually as I notice a crooked picture frame, an instinct honed from 40 years behind a hospital pharmacy counter, checking, cross-checking, and learning the small ways mistakes creep into people's lives. I had set out my evening medicines like I always do, a neat row on a saucer by the kettle. Amlodipine, 5 milligrams, should be pale, chalky, and almost shy in its color. This one had a glossy finish and a bolder blue, as if it had put on lipstick. I popped it back into the little organizer and told myself I was being fussy. Then I took the first sip of tea and tasted something bitter on my tongue that wasn't tannin and wasn't fear, but sat somewhere between the two. "You're overthinking again, Mum," said Lisa, my daughter-in-law, bustling in from the hallway with the kind of cheerfulness that needs witnesses. She pecked my cheek, opened cupboards with a proprietary twitch, and placed a brand new pill organizer on the counter. "Look what I got you, proper days of the week and everything. We can't have you mixing things up, can we?" Her voice had a sweetness I recognized from people who want to be praised for doing the bare minimum. My son, Daniel, followed behind with that apologetic smile he wears like a uniform. "She worries about you, Mum," he said, rubbing the back of his neck as if the words might sting. I swallowed whatever bitter thing had settled on my tongue and smiled. Being 72 doesn't mean you're helpless, but it does mean people feel better when you play along. I am Elena Markham, retired hospital pharmacist, widow, and a woman who knows the difference between a 5 milligrams tablet and a lie dressed as concern. Lisa put the new organizer beside my old one, then somehow my old one was in the bin, and she was chattering about how she'd reorganized my bathroom cabinet while I was resting, and how the labels were so much prettier now. I kept nodding while my hands wiped the saucer clean. After they left, I went straight to the medicine cabinet. Everything was tidier, true, but too tidy, like a hotel room staged for a photograph. My blood thinner was no longer the brand my GP prescribed. The generic equivalent was fine in theory, but the blister pack had a batch number I didn't recognize, and the patient leaflet was missing. The lock I always used to keep young visitors out had the faintest scratch around the keyhole. Someone had hurried with a nail file or a hairpin. That night I didn't sleep. At 4 in the morning, I got out my old magnifying loupe, the one that has survived house moves and grandchildren's curiosity, and I inspected each blister like a stamp collector. On one card, the foil was sealed unevenly, as if it had been lifted and pressed down again by a thumb. I pressed the card to my ear. When you've handled as many as I have, you know the sound of air where there shouldn't be air. At noon, on the way back from the GP surgery, I stopped at Patel's pharmacy. Mr. Patel has been on our high street for 27 years, long enough to have seen me through my husband's illness and the slow kindness people call grief. He took one look at the blue tablet on his tray and frowned. He fetched his reference guide, then lowered his voice. "Mrs. Markham, someone collected a partial prescription under your name last Tuesday. Not you. A young woman. She had your address and NHS number." He hesitated. "She said she was your carer." I nodded, as if of course I knew that, as if this was an administrative detail and not a tilt in the floor of my life. When I stepped outside, the wind off the seafront cut through my coat, and I clutched my bag like a small, frightened animal. A young man from my building, Marco, the concierge who's always polite to me in 2 languages, was locking his bicycle nearby. He looked at my face and stopped smiling. "Mrs. M, you okay?" he asked softly. "Could you help me with something, Marco?" I heard my own voice and knew it was the one I used to use with interns on their first day, a tone that made people stand up a little straighter. "Anything," he said. And for the first time, I believed I might not be crazy. Because if I was, why did my hand stop shaking the moment he said yes? I didn't tell him yet what for. I only asked if he knew anything about hidden cameras. He did. And that was the moment, though I didn't know it then, when everything began to turn. Because the next time Lisa opened my medicine cabinet, it would be looking back. And the next time she smiled at me for the benefit of my son, something cold and glassy would be recording the shape of her mouth. 2 days later, I stood in my kitchen while Lisa narrated my competence to the family group chat as if it were a children's book. "We're just simplifying things for Mom," she said, angling her phone to show the organizer. A proper system so she can't get muddled. The comments flew in with heart emojis. Daniel sent clapping hands. My sister-in-law added a casserole emoji, which I still don't understand. I was reduced to a woman who needed a caption. Mom learning to take her meds, so proud. Lisa started dropping by to help with showers and to check the heating, and every visit came with a little remark to remind me of my place. Have you eaten? Where are your hearing aids? Let me have the spare keys. It's safer that way. She began calling herself my carer in front of neighbors, and once at the greengrocer, she loudly corrected me about my own PIN number when I paid, reaching for the keypad as if my hands were decorative. The worst was Sunday lunch. She served my plate last, then put it in front of my seat, then moved it to another seat without explanation, like a magician trying to confuse a child. Her sleeves were rolled up in that way people have when they want you to notice the effort they're putting in. When I reached for the gravy, she took the jug from my hand and dabbed at a drop on my cardigan with a napkin. We all want what's best for you, Elena, she said in her sweetest voice, turning to the table as if giving a toast. Daniel and I have talked, and we think it's time to think about the next step. Maybe assisted living? So you're not alone, so you don't have to worry. You'll have people around you. I swallowed. I like my own bed, I said. My voice came out soft, which annoyed me. She patted my hand like a nurse in an advert. Of course you do. But being stubborn isn't the same as being safe. The room shifted. My grandson looked away, embarrassed. Daniel avoided my eyes and stared at his plate. Mom, we found a lovely place near us, he mumbled. And Lisa can manage your meds properly. She's made a chart. Has she? I said lightly. How hardworking of her. We've also booked an appointment with the solicitor, said Lisa casually, cutting her meat, not looking up. To set up the power of attorney. It will just make things easier, won't it? The fork touched my teeth and made that unbearable scratch. Power of attorney. The phrase sat on the table like a new guest who wouldn't leave. I put my fork down. We will see, I said. I didn't tell them I had already looked up the forms and read all the guidance for the lasting power of attorney the week before, printed on my old laser printer with a stubborn streak of gray on the margin. That evening, the group chat lit up. Lisa sent a photo of a glossy care home brochure and wrote, "A gift for Mom, a tour next week." As if a gift can be something you hand someone with one hand while your other is already taking the keys. I went to the bin after they left and fetched my old pill organizer, still there under carrot peelings and a tea bag. The hinge was snapped neatly. Not accidental. I washed it and put it in a drawer. That's when I found the letter under the doormat. No stamp. A kind reminder from my bank to confirm whether I had requested a third-party mandate on my account. The letter was dated yesterday. The third party was Lisa. I stood in the hallway and felt my pulse knock twice in the side of my neck. I took a breath and then another. The phone rang. It was Mr. Patel. I ran the batch number you gave me, he said. It doesn't match any supply we've had this month. And one of your boxes of warfarin, how do I say this? It's been compromised. The seal isn't manufacturer quality. Mrs. Markham, please don't take anything until we sort this. Thank you, I said. The kettle clicked off behind me, and I realized my hands had set it to boil without asking me first. I slept with the bedroom door locked that night for the first time since my husband died. In the morning, a card had been pushed under my door. Wellness Starter Pack Love, L. Inside the bag on the hall table was a new tea blend and a plastic key with a smiling flower on top. I turned the plastic key in my hand and felt my stomach flip. It was a duplicate of my cabinet lock. She gave me the key to the mess she'd made, and she meant it as a kindness. The next day, the bank called to ask whether I'd be attending the mandate appointment on Thursday. Apparently my carer had booked it on my behalf. I smiled at the phone as if it were a gull on the railings. Oh, I'll be there, I said. I absolutely will. At 2 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and wrote the date, then underlined it the way I used to underline dosages on discharge letters. This won't go on any longer. I wrote it like a prescription and felt my shoulders drop. I called the safeguarding adults line when the clock ticked over to 9. The woman on the phone had a voice that did not rush or pity. She asked questions until my story felt like data rather than hysteria. You have video? She asked. Good. Keep originals. We'll assign an investigator. Do not confront her yet. Do you have someone you trust? Marco, I said, surprising myself. My building's concierge. And Mr. Patel, my pharmacist. And, if it's allowed, my GP nurse, Claire. She noticed I've been bruising more easily. That might fit with a dosing error or interference, the woman said. We'll also notify the CQC. If your daughter-in-law is registered as a carer, there are professional implications. She paused. Do you feel safe? Yes, I said. And then, because the truth matters, not when I sleep. We can put a flag on your door for community police checks, she said. And we'll schedule a home visit. Do not take any meds not supplied directly by the pharmacy until we've verified everything. Can you come to a solicitor today to lodge an LPA objection note, just in case? I phoned a solicitor I knew from church, a woman named Amara who had once helped me untangle a neighbor's will without charging a penny. In her office, the carpet was whisper soft and there was a bowl of boiled sweets nobody touched. I told her I would one day bring biscuits that didn't embarrass me, and she smiled like an ally. Together we filed a safeguarding concern and a notice of objection to any LPA attempt based on undue pressure. She advised me to prepare an advance statement of my wishes. I wrote in plain words that I enjoy my home, my garden, my own kettle, and that nothing is to be changed without my consent. If they push you to act helpless, let them, Amara said. Your competence is not a thing you have to perform for them. And if you need to agree to something to create a paper trail, that's not weakness. That's evidence. There it was, the rule of my new world. Reversed weakness. I walked home feeling oddly taller. Marco helped me upgrade the camera in the bathroom cabinet and add 2 more, one above the hall table and one near the study where I keep my bank statements. He rigged them to upload to a cloud account only I could see. My aunt got scammed once, he said, cheeks pink with the admission. I wish she'd told me earlier. People, they think it's shameful to need help. It's not. You're risking your job, I said. Not a risk if I'm doing the right thing, he said. He put his hand on his heart, a gesture I have always thought theatrical and yet, in that moment, sincere. Small victories came and bit me like small dogs. Mr. Patel printed me the dispensing record for the past 3 months and highlighted each collection with timestamps. 2 of them were signed L. Nurse Claire examined my bruises and wrote the kind of note that makes people read carefully. If a patient on warfarin is given an inconsistent dose, we'd expect exactly this, she said. We'll run bloods today. The blows kept coming. Someone tried to log into my online banking at midnight. The failed attempt alert pinged on my phone 3 times in a row. The next morning, the camera app wouldn't open, password incorrect. Lisa had noticed something. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone and felt the old panic rise. Then I remembered the cloud backups. I texted Marco one word, locked. He replied with a thumbs up emoji and the words, I copied everything yesterday to USB. In my locker. At the bank that afternoon, the manager ushered us into a side room. Lisa had already arrived and waved at me as if we were at a bake sale. Mom forgets her pin sometimes, she told the manager, sympathy on her face like blush. We just want to help with her bills. I looked at the manager and smiled. I'm here to add a trusted contact, I said calmly. Not a mandate. And to record that I do not consent to any third-party access. Also, I'd like an alert on any new applications. The manager blinked, recalibrating. Lisa's lips moved into a thinner line. Elena, don't make this harder than it needs to be, she murmured. You're tired. We all see it. Are you registered with the council as a carer, Lisa? I asked in the same soft tone. If we're putting anything in writing, we should put everything in writing, shouldn't we? Her eyes flicked. Of course. I mean, I have experience. Good, I said. Because if my safeguarding officer needs your details, we wouldn't want gaps, would we? She stared at me for one long second and then looked down at her phone. On the way out, she squeezed my arm too hard, smiled at a teller and whispered, You will regret this. Marco was waiting outside the bank on his break, as if we had planned a heist and he was my getaway driver. We weren't, but we were close enough. I told him everything while pigeons made a mess of the pavement. We have the footage, he said. But there's more. My cousin Anna cleans the communal bins. She found a box last night with your name on it, the pharmacy label half torn. She didn't want to meddle, but thought it looked wrong. She kept it. She can bring it to the meeting. What meeting? I asked. The one your son and Lisa called. Tomorrow evening. Family decisions, the email said. They CC'd the vicar for moral weight. My breath did that odd two-step again. Good, I said. If they want an audience, let's give them a show. At home, I set the wellness starter pack tea on the counter and looked at the flower-topped plastic key. It dawned on me, why had she given me a key unless she wanted to be the generous one? The fake benefactor, the one who rescues you from a problem she installed. I slid the key into a Ziploc bag. Evidence, not charity. That night, my phone vibrated with a silent motion alert at 2:11 a.m. I lay in the dark and watched, in grayscale, Lisa on tiptoe in my hall, using a torch under her scarf like a child, opening my study drawer, lifting her phone to photograph my bank statements. Behind her, a figure hovered in the doorway, a woman with a neat bun and a lanyard clipped to her cardigan. I paused the frame and zoomed. I knew that face from the Care Broker website, Audrey Fielding, care coordinator, the one who had advised Lisa on options for me last week and had offered to pop by to reassure the family. My stomach turned. The smiling professional who sells support had brought along a bag of placebos. The next evening, the family meeting convened in Daniel and Lisa's dining room, where art prints of famous beaches tried too hard to be calm. The vicar sat at the end, palms folded, invited to play the role of conscience. A plate of supermarket biscuits sat untouched. My grandson hovered on the stairs, pretending not to listen. The HOA chair, Helen, had been invited under the pretense of discussing my safety in the building. She knows everybody's business and writes minutes for fun. Mom, we love you, Daniel began, eyes already tired. This isn't an attack. We just need to make arrangements. There's been confusion with your medication. Which is why, Lisa cut in, smiling to include the room. We've stepped in. I've been doing her pills, and I think an LPA is sensible. Just paperwork. We've spoken to a coordinator, Audrey. The one on your camera last night? I asked. Helen looked up from her notebook sharply. The vicar coughed. Daniel blinked. What camera? He asked. I took out the USB Marco had given me, placed it on the table, and slid it to Helen. Would you mind, dear? The television is yours, and you're good with remotes. Helen lives for a display of competence. Within 2 minutes, the living room screen flickered to life with my hallway in black and white. Lisa, scarf over hair like a parody, moving toward my study. The room went very quiet. This is illegal, Lisa hissed. Recording me like that. Tampering with a vulnerable adult's medication is illegal, Helen said, unexpectedly sharp. Let the lady finish. The footage changed to the medicine cabinet, the small lens peering past the cough syrup. We watched Lisa lift the blister, slide another in, and press down the foil with glossy red nails. We watched Audrey hand her a box with my name half torn, the dispensing label visible for a frame. Helen paused and rewound, paused again. That's the pharmacy label, she said, voice clinical. That's not a wellness pack. You've misunderstood, Lisa said, color rising in her cheeks. I was swapping a damaged pack. For safety. Then why is the leaflet missing? I asked quietly. And why does the batch number not match the pharmacy's record? Mr. Patel has printed everything. He's given a statement to safeguarding. Claire from my GP surgery has documented my bruising and the blood results. And Amara, my solicitor, is on speaker if anyone wants to argue about power of attorney. Daniel looked like he would be sick. The vicar stared at his hands. My grandson had crept onto the last step, both hands gripping the banister. Mum? Daniel said to Lisa, voice cracking in a way I had not heard since he was 10. What is this? This is what abuse looks like when it wears a nice cardigan, I said, hearing my own voice like a stranger's. This is what help looks like when it comes with forms to sign and keys you never asked for. This is someone trying to make me look incompetent, so I will hand over my life one document at a time. Lisa's chin lifted, which is her tell. You're ungrateful, she said, but the heat had gone out of her performance. We've given you so much. Time. Care. You requested a third-party mandate on her bank account, Helen read from the bank's letter I had passed her, and booked a care home tour without her consent. And you filed an LPA application that Mum was too tired to attend. She glanced at me. You filed an objection. Good. Those records will be interesting to the council. I nodded to Marco, who had slipped in and stood by the door like a reluctant bouncer. There's more, he said. He gestured to Anna, my unseen ally, who stepped forward from the hall clutching a clear evidence bag. Inside lay the torn pharmacy box with my name and the half-peeled label. Found in the building bins, she said in accented English, eyes steady on Lisa. Why throw this away in the dark? Lisa opened her mouth, closed it, then turned to Daniel. Tell them, she whispered in a tone meant only for him, but heard by all. Tell them your mother forgets things. Tell them she confused her dosages last month and I caught it. Tell them I saved her. Daniel stared at the floor. I don't know what to tell, he said. I don't even know what's true. The truth, I said, is that your wife collected prescriptions in my name, altered my meds, pushed for control of my finances, and brought in a so-called coordinator to back her up. The truth is that I let her call me helpless long enough to get the proof. And the truth is that I'd rather be alone than cared for like that. The vicar finally spoke. This is no longer a family matter, he said carefully. This is a safeguarding concern. I will support any formal action. He looked at Daniel. We do not demand forgiveness when we have not made amends. Lisa's phone buzzed, and she looked down reflexively. In the silence, we all heard the message arrive. She paled. From my agency, she whispered. Suspended pending investigation. A referral's been made to the council and the DBS. Yes, I said. By me. And by Mr. Patel. And by Claire. And by Amara. And, as it seems, by Helen, who CCs for sport. Helen had the grace to look pleased. Forms are my love language, she said, deadpan. Lisa stood abruptly, chair skidding. You can't do this to me, she said, breathless now. I was trying to keep things orderly. We would all have benefited. I put in so much effort for your house, your appointments. You have no idea. We do, Marco said quietly from the door. We all have an idea now. The room held its breath. Lisa seemed to realize her audience, her public, wasn't buying the script anymore. She looked at Daniel for rescue and found him looking at me instead. I looked at my son and remembered him at 8, hair sticking up like a thistle, crying because he'd lost a paper boat to the tide. I'd taught him then that you can't negotiate with the sea. You can only learn where it ends and begin again on dry sand. I want you to choose decency, I said now. I want you to call the investigator and cooperate fully. I want you to take your son home in a taxi and tell him that adults make mistakes and that the best ones own them. And I want my spare keys back. He reached into his pocket and placed the keys on the table without a speech. It was clumsy and perfect. The days that followed moved like a stern procession. The council's safeguarding team came to my flat with clipboards and kindness. They watched the footage, collected the pharmacy box, took statements. Lisa's carer registration was suspended, then revoked. The disclosure and barring service placed her on the barred list for working with vulnerable adults. Audrey, who turned out not to be properly accredited for the role she was selling, received her own summons from the regulator. She had collected samples of medicines from 3 other clients without documented consent. Investigators found a pattern of overstepping disguised as efficiency. No handcuffs, no drama, just letters with crests and signatures, and a cooling of air around Lisa when she walked down the high street. People shift their bags slightly when they pass a story like this, even if they don't look up. At the greengrocer, the women didn't whisper loudly. They didn't have to. They priced apples and measured one another. Daniel stayed away for a week, then came with a packet of custard creams and a face that had practiced apologies. He sat at my table and took both my hands like you do with someone you don't want to drop. Mom, I let it happen, he said. I let you be diminished in your own home. I thought she was helping. I wanted to believe that being organized was the same as being kind. You were busy surviving your own life, I said. You married someone who needs control to feel safe. That's not a sin. It's a need. What matters is what we do now. He nodded, eyes wet, a man holding 2 truths at once. I've moved out for a while, he said. With Josh. We'll take it slow. If you want me to come by evenings to check the radiators, I will. If you don't, I won't. Whatever restores your breath. We sorted ordinary things first. Locks changed, bank alerts tightened. A small camera left in place not from fear, but from the calm of good habits. I set up a trust with Amara so that if I ever do need help, the help comes with guardrails. I updated my will, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Small bequests to people who showed up when it mattered. Mr. Patel's pharmacy charity, Marco's little sister's scholarship fund, a legacy to my grandson to be released by someone who knows the difference between stewardship and possession. I started a Tuesday morning drop-in at the community center called Know Your Pills. Nurse Claire lent me a whiteboard. Mr. Patel sent sample leaflets. Marco printed posters in both English and Spanish because he said his gran would come if she didn't feel stupid. The first week we had 5. By the third, there were 17, including a quiet man who brought a crumpled carrier bag of bottles and left with a tidy box and his shoulders 2 inches lower. People think revenge tastes like blood, but it tastes more like tea in a clean mug in a room where nobody talks over you. Once, in the bakery, Lisa stood behind me in the queue. I could feel the effort it took her not to bolt. Elena, she said finally. Consonants careful. I'm sorry for everything. No, you're not, I said gently, turning to meet her eyes. Not yet. You're sorry you were seen. I hope one day you're sorry you did it. That will be better for you. The woman behind the counter waited, looking between us like a tennis match. I paid for my loaf and left her there in the smell of yeast and consequence. On a warm Saturday, my grandson came over with a shoebox he had decorated. I made you a new pill organizer, Gran, he said, lifting the lid to show me compartments made from folded card, labels written in careful capitals. We learned it in science. He looked up at me, a little scared he'd made me sad. It's perfect, I said, and something in my chest loosened. We filled it together at the table, me reading the labels and him snapping lids with the solemn pride of a junior pharmacist. Why do people do bad things and call them help? He asked afterward, crumb on his lip from the biscuit he wasn't supposed to have. Because control makes some people feel less afraid, I said. And because some people think love is management. It isn't. You'll learn the difference by watching how people behave when they think no one is watching. He nodded like he understood more than I intended him to. We played rummy and let the afternoon be kind. If you came to my flat now, you'd notice nothing special. The medicine cabinet has a new lock. The organizer on the counter is neat, not showy. In a folder near the kettle there's a list of numbers, Amara, safeguarding, Mr. Patel, Marco written in a hand that doesn't shake. Some evenings I sit with the sliding door open, listening to the gulls, and think about the plastic key with the smiling flower. I keep it in the same bag as the torn pharmacy box, a reminder that sometimes a gift is just a handle on a trap. The lesson isn't grand. It's something smaller and therefore harder. If someone insists too loudly that you're lost, make sure they aren't the one moving the landmarks. And if you must pretend to be a burden to write your way out of a story, do it with a clear eye and a quiet pen. I sleep with my bedroom door open again. Not because the world got safer, but because I set the rules for how I live in it. The question that echoes now is simple. Who holds your keys? And if it isn't you, what are you going to do about it?